The battlefield trembled beneath Kira's feet. His breath came in ragged gasps, his chest rising and falling with uncontained fury. The deep, ancient markings across his skin ignited, glowing like molten veins of gold and silver blue, crackling with energy. His aura surged outward in violent waves, distorting the very air around him. The weight of his power pressed down upon the land, making even the shadows shrink in fear. Then he unleashed it. A monstrous surge of spiritual energy erupted from his core, shaking the world itself. Shockwaves tore through around him. The wind howled like a furious beast, ripping through the battlefield. The decayed trees, stripped of their life, were sent hurtling into the sky. The dragon snarled, its claws digging deep into the earth, struggling against the relentless storm. Its wings trembled, unable to unfurl, its tail thrashing as it fought to stay grounded. Varow staggered back, his dark cloak billowing violently. With a sharp motion, he slammed his scythe into the ground, gripping it tightly as the storm threatened to carry him away. Even still, his hollow gaze never wavered, locked onto Kira with a silent promise of vengeance. The silver lake, once still, now swelled with unchained fury. The waters churned, rising like a tidal wave, and from its depths, a massive form emerged, Terra, the ancient octopus. Its glowing tentacles shot forth, wrapping protectively around the druid princess just before the wind could rip her away. The very forest responded to Kira's energy. Towering trees erupted from the ground, their roots spreading like colossal serpents, lashing toward the scythe and entangling Queen Arya. She let out a pained cry, struggling against them, her hands outstretched as she tried to decay the roots that held her. But this time they did not wither. They glowed, pulsating with Kira's energy, resilient, untouchable. Through the chaos, Vega emerged, the giant lion's mane crackling with raw power. He advanced, his golden eyes locked onto Varow, his presence a force of nature itself. Behind him, 7 silver wolves moved like shadows, their eyes burning with unshakable resolve. Then, from the depths of the earth, the dead stirred. Arwen, the fallen beast tamer, crawled forth from the ground, his presence heralded by a chorus of snarling, skeletal creatures. Their bones gleamed under the eerie moonlight, their hollow eyes fixed on the battlefield, awaiting their master's command. Varow's voice thundered over the storm, his amusement cutting through the chaos. "Enough!" he roared, his deep, commanding tone shaking the battlefield. "You resist in vain. You think this changes anything?" He lifted a single hand, motioning to the dragon. The beast roared in response, digging its claws deeper into the ground. It advanced slowly, defying the howling winds, preparing to unleash its deadly fire. But the storm surged. A monstrous gust howled through the battlefield, turning the dragon's flames against it. Blue fire scattered wildly, spiraling upward in the air like spectral embers. Then, above them, something impossible began to take shape. The full moon shimmered, its glow intensified, twisting, shifting, as if it were alive. The light coalesced, forming the outline of something massive, something ancient. A bird. Phoenix. Not of fire, but of light. Its silver feathers glowed like moonlit silk, its long, ethereal tail rippling as though woven from the very fabric of the night sky. The moon phoenix spread its wings, and for a moment, it seemed as though the heavens themselves had awakened. The battlefield stood still. The druid princess, still cradled by the octopus's grasp, stared in disbelief. "No, that's not possible," she whispered. Even Arya, despite her struggles, went silent. Her emerald eyes widened as she beheld the impossible. "The moon phoenix," she murmured, her voice barely a breath. After all this time, Varow's smirk faded. For the first time, he glanced around. He saw them, Kira's forces, monsters, warriors, legends, all standing together. The giant lion, the silver wolves, the ancient octopus, the moon phoenix. And then his eyes fell upon Johann, the legendary warrior, the son of Queen Arya, Kira's father, standing tall, unshaken. The wind barely touched him, as if it dared not. His calm, measured steps carried him forward. His gaze locked onto Varow with quiet, unyielding fury. Varow exhaled slowly, then turned his gaze to Kira. A flicker of something crossed his expression. Not fear, but calculation. Fine. His voice was smooth, cold, but there was a sharp edge beneath it. Stay here in your enchanted forest. Hide behind your monsters. His lips curled into a cruel grin. But when you return to the real world, his voice dropped, filled with venomous promise. I will be waiting. With that, he signaled the dragon. The beast let out a guttural snarl, coiling its massive body, preparing to flee. Then Varow did something unexpected. He released his grip on the scythe. The moment he let go, the storm seized him, hurling him backward. Yet he moved with eerie control, allowing himself to be carried. With precise timing, he landed upon the dragon's back as it launched itself toward the gaping portal above. In one final, mocking glance, Varow locked eyes with Kira. Then he was gone. The portal snapped shut. The battlefield remained still. The storm faded. The silver glow of the moon phoenix lingered, casting its gentle light upon the ruins left behind. Kira wavered. The exhaustion struck all at once. His body buckled, the searing burn marks across his skin refusing to fade. He barely felt the silver wolves rush to his side, their worried whines filling his ears. A steady hand grasped his shoulder. You did it, son. Johann's voice was steady, warm. You freed her. Now rest. Kira barely managed a nod before his legs gave out beneath him. As he collapsed, the winds died down completely. The skeletal creatures and Arwen's forces dissipated into the earth once more, vanishing as if they had never been. The battle was over. Terra, the ancient octopus, gently lowered the princess to the ground. She stood, dazed, eyes wide as she took in the sight before her. Queen Arya, her breaths heavy, turned, her gaze falling upon Johann. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then she ran. Johann barely had time to open his arms before she was in them, sobbing against his chest. I missed you so much, Johann murmured, his voice thick with emotion. It's over now, mother. We're together again. And this time, I won't let anything separate us. Arya only nodded, her tears soaking into his tunic. But after a moment, she pulled away, her eyes settling on Kira. Slowly, she approached. You saved me, she said softly. Now let me return the favor. She knelt beside him, pressing a gentle hand to his shoulder. Warmth flooded through his body. His wounds vanished in an instant, the pain melting away. Strength surged back into him, his breathing steadying. Kira flexed his fingers, staring at his healed hands in disbelief. Why couldn't I heal those burns myself? Arya smiled knowingly. Because you're trying to force the wound to close without understanding what caused it. She placed a gentle hand over his, her touch radiating warmth. You pour more and more raw energy into healing, but that's like trying to break down a sealed door by pushing harder, when all you need to do is pull. A curse isn't just a wound. It has roots. If you don't find them, if you don't understand them, you're only treating the symptoms, not the cause. Her gaze softened. True healing isn't just power, Kira. It's knowing where to place it. She glanced toward the sky, where the moon phoenix hovered. But you have awakened something truly remarkable. Kira followed her gaze, his eyes drifting between the celestial bird above and the smoldering remnants of the battlefield. Then, his gaze landed on the egg nestled within the ashes, the last trace of the sun phoenix. He frowned. What happens to him now? As long as the egg remains unbroken, Arya reassured him, he will return. Kira lowered his gaze, the weight of everything settling upon him. I couldn't save your brother and his wife. His voice was quiet, raw with guilt. Arya's expression softened. It wasn't your fault. Silence. Then, the druid princess stepped forward, her emerald eyes shimmering with grief she tried to hide. Slowly, she knelt before Arya, lowering her head. Queen Arya, she said, her voice steady despite the sorrow. Welcome home. Kira turned to the scythe, reaching for it. Arya's hand caught his wrist. Her voice was calm yet firm. Not yet, she said, her emerald eyes steady. In your current state, it will consume you. Rest first. There is still much to do. Kira exhaled, pulling his hand back.